Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me this morning to help get you set for week number 8, get those lineups going, get those start-sit questions going, all that good stuff. It's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Man, these past 24 hours have been probably the hardest I've had this season trying to build DFS lineups, just because with the weather concerns in so many of these matchups, it's just deciding on particular wide receivers that are normally smash spot plays that much more difficult because of the fact that when wind is blowing diagonally across the field, like is going to be seen in the majority of these games, you cannot bank on the passing games.
That's a great point. That, you know what that means to me, Brian? It's time to dive in on some DK. I'm gonna deposit live and build some lineups as we talk through all the stuff that's going on, because there is a lot to get into. But let's start with the weather. And for those of you that are new to the show, you missed a hell of a show on Thursday. Brian and I went back and forth on our favorite betting lines and are going head to head with our best bets this week. So I donned the Ravens gear to set the tone, to let Brian know what's up.
And I will never have any Steelers stuff on me.
So. And after yesterday's college performance, I'm feeling really, really cocky today. So I'm sure it'll go horribly, and I'll go like 1-5. And of course, your best bet will hit again because that's all it does. But I figured let's have some fun with it. Let's see what we can do. So, but Brian, let's address some of the weather. There's a lot of issues across the country. Wind, rain, cold. Which ones are you monitoring closest right now when you're setting lineups, when you're setting DFS lineups?
Well, I think the one that is probably the most crucial for DFS in terms of like game stacks and stuff like that is what's going on in Tennessee and Cincinnati. Everyone was assuming this was going to be the largest game stack of the week, and it was supposed on the slate. It was the second highest game total of the week, only second to San Francisco and Seattle. But the good news out of this game is that, yes, it's going to be extremely windy, but the wind is going to be blowing from end zone to end zone. So if you have players on either one of these teams, like especially pass catchers, you're rolling them out there, because anytime that these teams are going to be with the wind, you're going to see a lot of deep shots, a lot of downfield passing. And I think especially like in DFS, people are going to kind of fade these games because of the weather. So you might get a heads up slightly on their ownership levels dropping a little bit.
Yeah. Just give me that extra 5 yards for AJ Brown to run under it. T. Higgins, all that good stuff. And then in Baltimore, we're going to have some weather as well. And we were talking about that a little bit right before we went on, and it's setting up for a nice opportunity, because obviously in the rain, passing game isn't, like, I feel like sometimes it's overstated how much it affects these guys, especially, there's different versions, right? There's really heavy rain that's blowing sideways. That definitely makes things a lot heavier, a lot harder. It makes it harder as you turn to make the catch, drop the ball, whatever. And then there's some other that's not as bad. It's just some, kind of annoying. You'd really prefer not to play in it. But it looks like with the wind in Baltimore, they're going to have some serious stuff to deal with.
Yeah, they're saying that it's going to be one of those just slop fest games where, especially it's natural grass, we're probably going to see a lot of mud out there. Footing is going to be really difficult. And something they were saying on one of the pregame shows today, which makes a lot of sense, is this could be the ceiling Lamar Jackson rushing game because of that fact. And also, like we mentioned pre-show, this could be the week that we finally see J.K. Dobbins take that role as the lead guy, especially as the better pass catcher, with the inability of Baltimore to be able to get the ball down the field as it is. And now the wind is blowing like it is. Maybe we see more check downs, more screens and stuff like that. And we finally see the athleticism that Dobbins brings to the table.
Yeah. And I think, normally we stack like a quarterback and a receiver, but this might be a stack a quarterback and running back kind of week. And maybe we can look at J.K. Dobbins as kind of a salary saver and hope he has a big game in a GPP type contest.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention that our boys over there in Buffalo, because that game is also looking to be an absolute messy game between Buffalo and New England. That backfield for the Bills between Devin Singletary and Zach Moss is probably going to be fed the ball a ton today. So this will be the first week that both of those guys are playable in redraft, especially in PPR leagues and in DFS. Like I actually like Zach Moss as being the more plotter guy against that bigger New England front.
Yeah.
Again, I am honking the horn for Zach Moss to take the role as the lead guy there in Buffalo.
Yeah. I'm honking for Singletary, and the coach is like, no, we'll just give each guy some carries. It's fine. They don't need to be fantasy relevant. um, yeah, I'm curious about that game because obviously, like the secondary for New England is extremely banged up, but we saw the Niners run all over them last week. The weather is dictating that. I could see both. Honestly, I could see both Moss and Singletary being fine flex type options this week. Neither guy getting enough volume to be a RB1 or even RB2 type guy. But I am curious to see how it plays out. We have a couple things in the chat I wanted to address, especially in regards to Stephon Diggs, who
Yep.
one of our commenters mentioned they traded Diggs for Jonathan Taylor. I assume that is. And if that's the case, I love that trade. He's another guy that I think it's been kind of weird in terms of his usage or lack thereof. But I feel like the way his slate, the matchups are going to be super, super tasty. I feel like he's a guy that's going to come on. And we saw at Wisconsin, like, there's no reason to not give him 20 touches. Like he's fine. Like let him run, let him go. Like using Jordan Wilkins and Naheem Hines, like Naheem Hines, if you want to do a little more pass catching, whatever. But like giving 10 touches to Jordan Wilkins just to like spare him out, like it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic trade because I do think as we get later into the season, I think we start to see Jonathan Taylor take on more of the backfield snaps and especially the carries, and they start to wean off of the Jordan Wilkins pacifier here for him. And, Jonathan Taylor turns into that RB1 that we kind of expected to begin the season.
Yeah. We have a few situations in terms of running backs. We're back to the Jamal Williams show. We're back to the Gio Bernard show. Dalvin Cook's obviously back following the bye. So Alexander Madison back to the bench. Still a guy that if you have roster space at the back end of your bench is worth holding on to because it's easy for that injury to re-aggravate itself this week, and all of a sudden we're back to Madison again as the feature back. Although, like, what do we make of Minnesota? Because clearly they're kind of like they're trading off pieces. They're trying to be bad, but their offense still has enough where, from a fantasy perspective, it's okay. Maybe this is just like a passing game to get behind and not really stress on kind of the other pieces.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All these injuries have been killing like our ability to prognosticate what's happening with these offense. And, if you're looking at just simply today, again, this is another game that's going to have horrible weather with winds blowing diagonally, and it's Kirk Cousins. So I'm not trusting him with the wind blowing.
So we're either getting 5 touchdowns or 5 interceptions, nothing in between.
Yeah. So this is a game too that I was actually thinking about this morning, in that in DFS, I know that they've been talking. Mike Zimmer came out and said that Dalvin Cook is expected to take on a full load. That being said, he's still coming off of a groin injury, and the fact that the weather is going to be bad, and the only way to beat the Packers is to keep the ball out of their hands. I think that Alexander Madison might be a sneaky play too if you're in a pinch for a guy who's potentially going to get 8 to 10 touches in a game where they're going to need to run the ball.
Yeah, and he is super explosive. So even if he only sees 7 to 10, one of those might be a 70-yard touchdown. So with the injuries, with all the stuff going on, it's not ideal. Chris Carson, Brian, we talked about this on the waiver wire show. I feel like, I don't often get everything right, but this is one I absolutely nailed. Carlos Hyde is doubtful, not going to play. Chris Carson's 50-50.
This situation is so
DJ Dallas, like this whole game, we should talk about all the running backs because there's a lot of running backs. A lot of guys could get the touches, and I'm not sure, like, if I want to start any of them. Like, I think this is going to be, 35-33 passing everywhere kind of game. Carson, like if you have other options, like I'm looking at other pieces to see if I can start literally anyone over Chris Carson, because not only is he banged up, not only is this a game I expect to go back and forth with a ton of shootout ability, but the Niners are awesome at stopping the run and getting healthier and playing better. How reasonable is it to assume that he could do anything?
Yeah, this whole Seattle San Francisco game to me is going to be predicated on the passing games. And yeah, to Sea Dog's question there, I would definitely start Justin Jackson over Chris Carson this week, because even if Carson is active, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be in there playing the same role that he is. And this is a Seattle team that's already throwing the ball at like a 65% clip, and it should only increase if he's out. Now that on that note, like I actually do really like DJ Dallas and DFS today, because if he is the only active running back, you're starting a guy who would be playing the majority of the snaps at a position, who's probably going to get anywhere from 5 to 10 touches, probably as a receiver. And I would be really interested to see what Seattle does in that backfield with, say, a guy like Tyler Lockett lining up back there next to Russell Wilson, or we get to see a little bit of David Moore lining up back there and them running a lot more motion against this Niners defense, who has definitely come back to, the expectations that we thought entering the season as being one of the top teams in the NFL. So it's not a situation that I'm excited about, but it is one to monitor, because there might be some good values to take in.
Yeah. We had a question for before we get past it. Dallas Goedert or Hunter Henry? I think it's Dallas Goedert. And
Dallas Goedert, baby. If he's healthy,
yeah.
Carson Wentz funnels the targets to the tight ends.
10 to 12 targets against a terrible Dallas defense. He could easily have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns today.
Let's just keep piling it on, my boys.
That's right. It's been a rough season, Brian, but it's gonna get worse. Although I do think they covered today, and let's see where the line's sitting. It's over 10.
Yeah, it's up to 11. Me? It's up to 11.
That's silly. That's crazy.
But
anyway,
they're anemic.
Yeah, they're playing the Eagles. As we saw, Michigan State is anemic, and what happened there, Brian?
Oh man, Michigan's pass defense is atrocious.
Would you start LaMichael Pirine over Justin Jackson? I think
I'm fairly interested in that, but Frank Gore is active today, so
the problem. So here's the thing. In theory, LaMichael Pirine could be the pass catching back in a game where clearly the Jets should be down a lot.
3 touchdown dogs.
So maybe he gets a lot of work. I don't you never feel good about starting a Jet, but at the same time, how good do you feel about using Justin Jackson against the Broncos? Could be Josh Kelly. I'm trying to figure out the Josh Kelly situation. As we mentioned, when Eckler went down, it seemed like a great spot for him, and yet the coaches don't want to play him, or they kind of use a committee, they're not comfortable. And then it's a lot of Justin Herbert, and rightfully so. The dude's been awesome, throwing it all over the field, producing, and obviously their defense, while it has pieces that are interesting, can't give up yards, can give up points. So he's had to throw a little bit more. On the road in Denver, I might go Jackson's probably the safer play, but if you're looking at, I need a guy who may catch six balls for 40 yards and score a touchdown or 2. I actually kind of like Pirine.
Yeah, especially on this Jets team. I know that they're really bad, and the Chiefs defense is super aggressive, but they are beatable on bigger plays because they do like to bring the heat. And the Jets have really nobody on the outside to throw to except for Denzel Mims, who's a rookie, he's only playing his 3rd game. Braxton Berrios, and Chris Herndon, who the hell is he right now? He basically retired to begin the season. So
there's a few guys that I kind of expected to take steps forward this year that didn't. Would you pick up DJ Dallas and have Dallas and Carson and be able to kind of play that when it gets closer to game time, or would you go with either Pirine or Jackson as your option, and then just forget about the Seahawks running backs?
Oh man, I mean, if Dallas is the only active guy, I have to think that
Well, even if
guaranteed
Carson,
double-digit touches.
yeah, even if Carson is quote unquote inactive, or I mean active, maybe he's not really healthy and doesn't actually play, and maybe DJ Dallas sees 15 touches.
I would
Um,
probably I would probably go the route in the higher scoring game. So I would
mhm.
pick up DJ Dallas, wait for the news on Chris Carson, and hope that he's actually inactive, so that way
Yeah.
I can play DJ Dallas.
Yeah, and even if you play Chris Carson, like it may not be fun. It may be like 12 carries, it may be like 27 yards, but if he scores a touchdown, you're
Yep.
not going to be mad. So I think that's probably the move is hold the Seattle backfield, and then when who's if Carson's healthy or Carson's active, play him. If not, play DJ Dallas.
All right, this is
Kurt,
a good question. Kirk Cousins over Big Ben. Because Kirk can get those garbage time points, but
he
are
sure
those actually
can.
going to occur this week?
Man, you know what? I kind of think they will. And isn't Green Bay down one of their starting corners? Jair Alexander, maybe? I have to look, or maybe he's the one that's active. I don't know. Uh Big Ben in the rain versus Baltimore in a rivalry game. I think this game could be like I obviously think Baltimore wins, but could it be like 17-13, really gross, kind of like that Thursday night game where you don't really want to play any of the quarterbacks? I might say Kirk Cousins. Like
The
if
last
the
time we trusted Kirk Cousins.
I know, but
Yeah.
he actually went to Seattle and looked pretty good in the one spot where I kind of liked him. So he didn't quite live up to like, oh, it's Seattle, they're terrible, throw all over them. And as you mentioned, Mike Zimmer sometimes likes to a lot of run to keep the other offense off the field. But yeah, I think I'm going Kirk Cousins, as gross as
Yeah,
that sounds.
I guess I can get behind that just with the issues in Baltimore and Pittsburgh, the way that both those teams are really defensive oriented. They're both going to lean on the ground games,
Yeah.
potentially a low scoring affair, old school AFC North battle.
Sea Dog, I think I might start Carson Wentz over Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
It would depend on kind of how, like, if your league is structured so you only get 4 points for passing and 6 points for rushing, and maybe you get rushing bonuses, I might lean Lamar in that scenario. But I think Carson Wentz has a field day here. Obviously, getting Goddard back, getting Jalen Reagor back to go with Travis Fulgham against this Cowboys defense that is absolutely atrocious and full of injuries. I think he has a monster game here. And as I mentioned, with the rain, with the weather, with the just Steelers and Ravens, I think this is a lower scoring, grinded out game. Now, Lamar could run for 125 yards and a touchdown. If that gives you something extra, then maybe it's worth taking the risk. But I think Carson Wentz has a phenomenal game here.
Yeah, I'm definitely going Carson Wentz here because it's kind of the similar situation with what's going on with Patrick Mahomes, how people are kind of down on him because they are such big favorites and they're expecting like them to take their foot off the pedal. But the matchup is so good and Philadelphia has also not been able to put any team away. So I don't think they're going to throttle it down at all against this Cowboys team, regardless of how many points they have on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Boston Scott, as good as he is, he's better served as a receiving option. He's not going to be getting the goal line carries if they're down there. You're going to see a lot of play action. You're going to see a lot of rollouts with Wentz.
A lot of Dallas Goddard in the end zone.
Yes. So yeah, I'm going Wentz.
Yeah. PPR, Tevin Coleman, T.Y. Hilton, Henry Ruggs.
Oh man. Even with the crappy weather, I really like Henry Ruggs. I think Cleveland is horrible against like big play receivers, especially that lineup in the slot. I know that Hunter Renfrow is the slot guy there, but they like to move Henry Ruggs all around the field. He's a big play waiting to happen. Derek Carr has been wanting to get this guy involved in this offense, and with Darren Waller taking a lot of the attention away from that Browns defense, I think Henry Ruggs could have 100 yards of yak this weekend today against the Browns. He doesn't need to catch the 50-yard bomb. It could be a 5-yard slant and him just take it to the house. So I'm going Henry Ruggs there.
Yeah, Henry Ruggs is one guy that I has looked a lot better than I expected when on draft night. It was really easy to make fun of the Raiders for taking him and, oh, this guy isn't going to be a factor. But whenever he's on the field, he plays really well. He looks awesome. He's explosive. Now, he has kind of been one of those guys that seems to take the wrong hit and come out of the game to points. And so there is a little more risk if you need a safer volume play. I think Tevin Coleman could be it. But as we mentioned last week, Jerick McKinnon got a rest. And I could see this being a spot where, all of a sudden they redeploy him as the pass catcher and work Tevin Coleman in slowly. And obviously no Debo. I think this is a team that wants to run the ball. And I think Jimmy G throws a lot and has a nice game here. Like we've seen at points when they need to, they can throw. So there's a lot of risk. I think Coleman has a nice game here. I honestly do. And I am starting him in a few spots, but I like Henry Ruggs in that scenario. Would you trade George Kittle if you could get Mark Andrews and Michael Thomas?
Damn. I think it would be like, how bad do you need a wide receiver?
Yeah. If it's worth downgrading to add Michael Thomas. Now,
I think the touchdown equity with Mark Andrews is there, however.
Oh yeah.
Lamar Jackson loves Andrews in the end zone.
Yeah. And for me, this question is unfortunately less about Mark Andrews and more about Michael Thomas. Like, are we going to see him? Is he going to play? Like I feel like for a couple weeks now, he's been practicing and then he just doesn't play. And I don't know if it's like, oh, well, they're going to trade him and eventually get something, and that's why they're not playing him on game day. They're just practicing with him. But that whole situation is just incredibly bizarre.
Yeah, that kind of snuck into my head this morning when I saw the news that New Orleans is not looking to trade him. But why does it seem that he was healthy, seemingly ready to return, and then another injury popped up, and yet he was still like limited in practice, and they like preventing him from re-injuring himself in a game? It's pretty fishy what's going on there in New Orleans. I don't think we answered the question though. So I can't
do it. George Kittle is so important to what that offense is. I'd much rather take my gambles with a Travis Fulgham or I don't know, whoever's playing Dallas or whoever's playing
Seattle.
Yeah. Kittle, Galladay, and Gaskin for Devontae Adams and Mark Andrews.
Oh, hell no.
No, I think I love Devontae Adams and he's incredible, but I don't think you're getting an upgrade, even if it was just Kittle and Galladay for Adams and Andrews. Like, I'd rather have like Kittle over Adams and Galladay over Andrews, and Galladay is going to have a monster game here today.
It's one of those things where, yes, Devontae Adams is probably he's going to produce more than what George Kittle does. But when you look at it in terms of the position that these guys play, George Kittle's value above replacement at the tight end position is astronomically more than what Devontae Adams is over such a volatile position in the wide receivers. That
even if you're just stepping down to Mark Andrews, like it's still
it's a huge downgrade.
This is a guy that when he's been healthy has seen like basically double-digit targets at every single game. And that's not going to change, especially
he's
with
a wide receiver.
Yeah, and you get to play him at tight end. That's why his value is so high. That's why he and Kelsey are like borderline first, second round picks.
Hey, don't forget about my boy Darren Waller.
I'm not forgetting about him, but he's clearly at level 2 drop. But he has been incredible. He has seen the volume, and you can't ask for anything else. Josh Allen or Carson Wentz? I think it's Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I gotta go Carson Wentz.
Brandon Ayuk or Jarvis Landry in a full PPR?
Brandon Ayuk, baby.
I'm all aboard. This is a great matchup. This is a great opportunity. He's going to step Debo right into Debo's shoes, and he's going to go off. Kareem Hunt and he gave up Kareem Hunt and Stephon Diggs and got George Kittle, Myles Gaskin, and Travis Fulgham. It would depend on what else you had at running back. Like Brian and I have been saying, we love George Kittle as a he's basically a wide receiver you get to play as tight end. Travis Fulgham has been incredible, and we'll see how everything kind of adjusts with some of the pieces coming back, but I still think he's going to be solid. And the gas can's been reliable. Kareem Hunt has been pretty solid. I don't know that he quite took the leap forward that we thought we might see when Nick Chubb went out, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah, so you have Aaron Jones and Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, I think that's a trade that makes sense.
Yeah,
especially because you don't have to worry about tight end at all, and you have a top 15 receiver playing tight end basically.
Yeah, and I think Myles Gaskin, I don't think he's appreciated enough for what they're doing with him down there in Miami. Like, especially now with Tua back there, I think you're going to see a little more of a kind of like a designed playbook, whereas before it was kind of Ryan Fitzpatrick, working off the cuff, like doing a lot of stuff on his own. And now you're going to see them running designed plays. They're not going to deviate from that, which is going to be a lot more probably screen passes, short passes, dump offs to Gaskin. He's going to get more involved. So yeah, I like that trade an awful lot.
All right, Brian, I need you to pick two, and this is non-PPR, so no points for passing at all. Myles Gaskin, David Montgomery, DJ Dallas, Leonard Fournette. I need two.
Non-PPR. Give me Fournette just because of the matchup. And probably, I hate doing it, is probably David Montgomery just because Chicago's offense is Montgomery and Allen Robinson. That's the only way they move the ball.
Yeah, even though he is like 3 yards a carry, I still think
agreed. Yeah,
I still think he is the guy. And man, Leonard Fournette, it's the Giants, and the problem is I think this is a Ronald Jones bounce back game, so I think he has a nice game here. I might go with the gas can, to be honest. Like,
I don't know. Against the Rams, like in his first game, I know they love the kid, but I mean, he's going to have Aaron Donald in his face all day.
But that's the reason they're want to establish the run. They're going to drop in some screen passes and some quick things to get the ball out of his hands. And Gaskin may have 70 rushing yards, 40 receiving yards, and then hopefully a touchdown. So is that too aggressive?
I think that's wishful thinking. I'm in more of a wait and see approach with this Dolphins offense going forward.
Okay, so you're going David Montgomery and Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the Fournette's either going to get like 12 carries for 60 yards, maybe a touchdown, or he's going to get nothing. So
I just think that like Bruce Arians is gonna give us constant acid reflux because it's gonna be a constant rotation in that backfield where regardless of Rojo, if he's running huge chunk plays, they're still going to use Fournette in the 2-minute drill in hurry up type situations. Fournette has been playing good too, so it's just going to be an issue all season.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when he's been healthy, he has seen work. So when he's active, if he's active, he's on the field, he's playing. And as you mentioned, it's a great matchup. Yeah, you're probably right. We got a running back full PPR, Melvin Gordon, revenge spot. I already talked about my love for his potential touchdown props this week, or DeAndre Swift.
I'm not a huge fan of the Lions running backs this week against the Colts, but that being said, Indianapolis's defense is so stout up front. I don't think Adrian Peterson is going to be able to get anything going. And I do think that DeAndre Swift is going to have to be the guy that's utilized in the passing game. So I would lean Swift here. Yeah,
Swift definitely has a chance for a bigger upside.
Yep.
I think Melvin gets a touchdown, and I think he sees work, but I also don't think he's going to be very effective. And in the 2 games where Lindsey and Melvin have both been healthy, Lindsey's seen more volume on as a ball carrier. So Philip Lindsey's there today. Hopefully he sees more work. But yeah, I think I would go DeAndre Swift, especially with the full PPR aspect. Although if you just need safety and potentially a touchdown, I mean, I wouldn't blame you with going Melvin, but yeah, I think Brian and I are simpatico with DeAndre.
The other issue with this Denver offense this week is that Tim Patrick is likely to be out, and so the starting wide receivers for the Broncos are going to be rookie KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, Drew Lock.
It's a mess. Rams. So we talked a little bit about Tua and Gaskin and all that. Would you take the Rams or the Chargers versus this Broncos defense or offense, I guess?
I'm going to go with the Rams, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, I trust that Rams defense. I think Aaron Donald, like I think in the long run Tua's gonna be awesome. But today, in his first couple starts, we may see flashes, but I think that Rams D is gonna look good. Yeah. No, it's been a rough season, C-Dog. I mean, Mostert, Eckler, Sanders, and Carson. Like that, you should have been able to make through the season with those options and been really, really happy. And unfortunately, that's been this year. The studs are getting hurt. Players are missing time. COVID's been an issue. Offensive line's been hurt. It's been a messy season. But I like it's that's why we have to jump on it. That's rough. You drafted a hell of a team there, and that's why we play. Unfortunately, that's a part of fantasy. Is we will have amazing teams on paper, and it just all goes lopsided. That's why I play in so many leagues, because there's going to be leagues that I have that are like that. Because like based on that roster, if you had a healthy-ish team, even if one or two guys missed some time, you should be contending in all your leagues with that roster. But unfortunately, it's been a terrible year.
Hey, it for me, like I've kind of come to the realization that when it comes to fantasy football, all you have to do is get into the playoffs. It doesn't matter what you do during the regular season. If you're the highest scoring team, the number one team, the undefeated team, or the last team, all you got to do is get there. And if you're built like that and you were able to withstand all those injuries and stuff like that, you're built to win because you haven't even played with your best guys.
Yeah. Imagine going into the playoffs and all of a sudden Raheem Mostert's coming off of IR and Miles Sanders is healthy and playing awesome. Chris Carson and now you got Allen Robinson and oh, here comes Michael Thomas back onto the field.
Exactly.
So that's part of the reason. That's why I'm considering taking one of my home leagues and converting it to a DFS league next year, just because like playing with all these injured players is just ends up being not a lot of fun for a lot of people. And you want to be able to be competitive and be in it and not have to play guys like DJ Dallas every week because your team is just full of injuries.
Yep.
All right, Brian. Let's talk defenses from a DFS perspective because I'm setting my lineups and
Chiefs.
Is it Chiefs or bust? Is that what it is?
I made so many lineups while just plugging the Chiefs in and then building from there. I know that's not the most ideal way to do it, but going up against this Jets offense that is prone to tons of mistakes, I just think this Chiefs defense is primed to have a big day again, potentially score another touchdown. Now, I do also like some of the teams that are in kind of the sloppy games, like the Patriots and the Bills are both decently priced. They're both around that 3 to 3,300 price range at DK. And, in a sloppy game like that, Josh Allen has fumbling issues. Cam Newton has looked horrible. They're actually worst in the NFL in the amount of turnovers over the last couple of weeks. So I like both of those.
Ravens or Packers, if you're looking for a defense. I think
I'd play the Ravens.
I think the Ravens, especially in a DFS perspective, I think it could be sneaky. I think a lot of people could be like, "Oh, it's Big Ben, it's the Steelers." And if you're looking at from a price wise, like you're saving a lot of money with an elite defense. And now Big Ben could throw all over you, but in theory, especially if you're playing some sort of cash, it might not matter. Is there any big names in DFS that you're telling people to avoid this week?
I mean, there really isn't anybody that I'm saying to avoid, but I am slightly worried about the Green Bay thing, like with Devontae Adams. I know he absolutely destroyed Minnesota in week 1. He crushed Houston last week. Rodgers likes to funnel passes his way, and Minnesota will be down yet another corner. But with just kind of, if the weather gets worse in Green Bay with the diagonal winds and say it gets wet, I think Green Bay will lean more heavily on the running game, and you see a lot of Jamal Williams, a lot of A.J. Dillon finally. So I think for me, with how much more expensive Devontae Adams is, and just doing research from different sites and stuff, seeing that Devontae Adams is over $2,500 more than Keenan Allen, who has been a target monster, seeing like 35% of the targets there for the Chargers. Like, I would much rather roster Keenan Allen, who's going to he has a just as safe as a floor as Devontae with no weather concerns.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. But if you're playing in a GPP and you can find pivots that you like, Devontae Adams is absolutely set up for a smash spot. Continues to crush Minnesota, as Brian mentioned. Defensive woes. It's just about the salary. If you can find the pieces that make you feel comfortable with plugging him in at 8,800, it's makes sense. But if at that point, I don't know.
One of the other ones too was Derrick Henry.
You like him or you don't?
Well, so he's so expensive, but he doesn't offer any receiving floor. It's hard to pay up for that.
Yep. Pick 2: Lev Bell, Jamal Williams, Chris Carson, or DeAndre Swift.
Oh, give me Jamal Williams and ring that effing bell this week. I am all over the Le'Veon train.
Yeah. Le'Veon Bell against his former team. I could see them being like, you know what, Clyde? Take the week off.
Yep, exactly.
Le'Veon Bell, 20 carries, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm with you. Chris Carson, like, I'm not playing him unless I'm in more of a pickle than that. You have too many names. I think Jamal Williams is automatic, and then Bell or Swift. And I think I'm going with Bell this week. I think he at least gets a touchdown. I think he at least splits some sort of 60-40 carries, and I think he goes off. C-Dog, Darrell Henderson, in theory, should have a good game, but Sean McVay is the worst and decides that Malcolm Brown is going to see a bunch of volume one week, and then now we're going to go back to Henderson when you guys think Malcolm Brown is the answer.
I think this is going to be the Cam Akers week too, because if the Rams are able to control this game,
he doesn't like Cam Akers. Cam Akers was healthy last week and didn't even get a snap.
But that was a tight game, though. So I think that played a lot into it. So he went with the 2 guys that he has the most trust in right now, which is Brown and Brown and Henderson. But this week against a Dolphins team who they should handle, I think late in the third quarter, fourth quarter, this could be the Cam Akers show. And he might have that surprise, 80-yard touchdown performance just in garbage time.
Nah, not happening, bro. I like Darrell Henderson. I think he's definitely the better back of him and Brown, and there's probably going to be a split there, but I think he'll be more effective. So I think he has a nice game here. Okay, let's see what else we got going. Any breaking news from our old friend Adam Schefter? It doesn't seem like
there hasn't been any, except for we saw today Mark Ingram is likely to miss next week as well against the Colts. So I think having both Dobbins and Gus Edwards available, you should be picking up at least one of them.
Yep. Shefty was the trade deadline is Tuesday at 1:00. There's a few names, a few scuttlebutt names. It sounds like the Texans may be open to moving some of their receivers, including Brandon Cooks, including Kenny Stills.
Can we get Brandon Cooks in Green Bay?
Don't tease me with great ideas like that. That would be
fantastic.
Oh, or maybe the Niners. Maybe he could get to San Francisco.
I think his value would decrease there.
Yeah. I don't know. But that is something. Are you worried about Deshaun Watson down the stretch if they move 1 or 2 or 3 of those pieces? Nope. He's just going to kind of.
He just throws it down the field anyways. He doesn't care. I'm not a huge Watson fan to begin with. I think he's I don't know. I kind of think he's slightly overrated, and he's a roller coaster ride. So,
sounds like the Browns may move Njoku, which is great for Harrison Bryant, and then obviously Austin Hooper. I think it could be interesting. I would be curious to see,
dude,
where Njoku could go.
C-Dog over here saying that Julio is going to Philly. I don't see that happening.
I think Brandon Cooks or Kenny Stills to Philly could make sense, but their pass catchers are getting excited, are getting healthy at the right time. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm curious to see what Atlanta does. Like, they could, in theory, blow it all up and trade a bunch of their studs, or they could just sit on it because they still have a quarterback. If they have Calvin Ridley, and Ernest was asking about him. I think Calvin Ridley's a stud the rest of the way. I think this Falcons offense is fine. They're gonna have to throw because their defense is atrocious, and I kind of am a little more optimistic about their passing. Thursday nights are always weird, so I don't
Yeah,
really like to
you
read
did call that.
too much into it. Pick 2: Juju, Chase Claypool, or Devontae Parker. And then Goddard or Tanyan. So well, let's start with the quarterbacks and the tight ends because that'll be easier. So Dallas Goddard over Robert Tanyan, not even close.
Nope.
Drew Brees on the road or Cam Newton?
Give me Drew Brees, dude. I don't care. Yeah, they're on the road against an extremely tough defense in the Bears, but all he's going to do is throw the ball to Alvin Kamara, who is a big play waiting to happen, and lots of little shovel passes and quick throws to Deontay Harris, who's also a big play waiting to happen. He's going to have Jared Cook open all day. I still like Drew Brees, even in a tough matchup, over Cam, who has no receivers in a sloppy-ass game against the Bills team who really needs to get back on track. And New England's been turning the ball over like crazy. I think that's probably like a 10-9 game.
So, Keegan, I would say I would start Jimmy Garoppolo over both of them. I would start Derek Carr over both of them. I would start Baker Mayfield over both of them. I know you hate Baker. It's fine. So if those guys are on your waiver wire and you can add them and drop Cam, because as good, like Cam has been a roller coaster. The COVID time has clearly derailed him. They have a bunch of issues at pass catcher, and he's not Tom Brady. So out of the receivers, I think Juju and Parker are probably the answer. Claypool I like a lot, but he's clearly the third option when Deontay Johnson. I always do that. Deontay Johnson is healthy. And I trust Juju's volume more consistently. I'm not a huge fan of that matchup, and I'm gonna go whoa crazy here. I would start Kendrick Bourne over both Steelers receivers.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that San Francisco-Seattle game is set up to be an extremely high-scoring affair. It's going to be a shootout. Everyone's expecting the San Francisco defense to shut down Seattle because they've been playing so much better, but that's not happening because nobody's stopping Russ when he's cooking. And back to his three guys that he has to pick from. I'm with you. I'm going Juju just because he is more of that like higher floor kind of guy. And then although I'm not a fan of what Miami is facing today, I do think that the target share there for Devontae Parker is so much better than what Claypool is. So I would go Parker.
Yep. Leonard Fournette or Le'Veon Bell in a flex. I think we have to go Lev Bell, right? Ride the Belldozer.
Yeah, so both of these guys are playing similar roles in being that they're backup guys. But the difference is that if Tampa Bay gets up on New York, they're not going to be running hurry up, and they're going to be pounding the rock more than likely with Rojo, who seems to be the hammer when they're trying to put the nail in the coffin. Whereas this Kansas City team, they brought in Bell to alleviate the workload on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So if they're up big, he's probably going to be the one that's ending this game.
You know what Andy Reid's going to do, right?
Yeah, he's going to play Darrell Williams and Darwin Thompson.
No, he's going to sit Patrick Mahomes in the second half and let Le'Veon Bell play his Wildcat quarterback and just run in the line. Oh, it's going to be so good.
Dood, I would be so happy to watch that. That would be fantastic.
We appreciate the love, Keegan. We're here. We are here 3 days a week. We're here breaking down the waiver wire. We do a little fantasy betting. And then we're here every Sunday morning. So come hang out. Hopefully we can help you with some of those tough decisions. I think Calvin Ridley and Kenny Golladay is a phenomenal duo there, Ernest. I think most weeks you'll be incredibly happy with that. If you guys have any more questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Brian, have you, the lines are moving. Some stuff's pretty stagnant. How are you feeling about the bets we establish? And is there anything you're looking at, as we look on, Sunday morning that you're like, oh, I wish I had got in on that, or I'm happy I avoided that nonsense.
Well, so one is I'm looking right now at the San Francisco Seattle game. That's down to a 1 point line with it's the juice is almost even right now for money line betting. So lots of money is coming in on San Francisco to win that game, which I'll gladly take Seattle as the home team in this game to win outright. And that was something that we talked about. Anything under 3 was something like, I'm going to hammer that. So I'll be taking that. And then something else that I'm really intrigued about is the fact that the Rams line has creeped down to 3.5, and they're plus money at 3.5 point favorites in Miami. I know teams struggle down there, but going up against a rookie quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, I think the public and a lot of the money is coming in on the idea that this Miami offense is going to be better with Tua Tagovailoa because he's more athletic and stuff like this. And I just think that that's wrong. And this Rams team with their defense is going to be able to control the game, be able to run the ball over this poor Miami running defense. And I think the Rams run away with this potentially a double-digit win.
So with that being said, would you start Brandon Ayuk over Cooper Kupp?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I just think that the Rams have the ability to win the game whichever way is better for them. And if they don't need to throw the ball, I think they're kind of like the Niners in that sense, to where they would just run the ball 60 times if they could.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think they're going to go on the road, do just enough to win. So I kind of like getting 3.5. I think that could be a field goal game either way, but I do think they run the ball. So yeah, I would go IU too, even though it's a weird feeling. Ryan Tannehill or Lamar Jackson?
Give me the MVP, Ryan Tannehill. That dude is still underappreciated, and it's something I don't understand since last year when we started talking this guy up. When he took over for that Titans team, they are a completely different offense, and they are one of the most explosive teams in the NFL since he's taken over there. Regardless of the weather, the wind is blowing end zone to end zone, so it's not going to be that big of a factor. So it's not like it's going to deviate the throws off target. So
this is before last week when the Titans played the Steelers. But before that matchup, over their last 15 starts, Ryan Tannehill 12-3, 35-7 touchdown to interception, 264.5 passing yards per game. Patrick Mahomes also 12-3, but only 30 touchdowns to 6 interceptions and 259.9 passing yards. Russell Wilson over that stretch 11-5, 36-8, 260.5. Basically, Ryan Tannehill has been better than Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes over that stretch. That tells you all you need to know. Yep. As much as I love what Derrick Henry's doing, they are finding ways to throw the ball. They are AJ Brown is heavily involved. They're getting they're getting Corey Davis back. Their Jonnu should play. We'll see. Like Ryan Lamar is a safe floor, should have a nice rushing day, but I think that's an ugly game. I would go Tannehill from a fantasy perspective. All right, we got to pick 5. Jamal Williams, Zeke, and Connor. Galladay, Allen Robinson, and Devontae Adams at receiver. So I think we sit Zeke, right?
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not a fan of Zeke right now.
So Jamal and James Conner, I think, are pretty clear starts. And then at receiver, okay, so he has to pick 5. So he has Galladay, Allen Robinson, Devontae Parker. I think you play the 3 receivers with James Conner and Jamal Williams, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I definitely Jamal Williams, James Conner, just for the fact that he's going to be really heavily involved in the passing game today against this Ravens rush defense. They're going to have to funnel him a lot of targets back there. And then Kenny Galladay has the big play upside regardless of who they're going up against. And then, I mean, you have to play Allen Robinson as the only real legit outside threat for this Bears team. And then Devontae Adams he's a must start every week.
Yep. At flex, Jonnu Smith, Chase Claypool, LaMichael Pirine.
Ooh, that's interesting because I really like Jonnu Smith this week. But
I think that's the answer.
I think Jonnu is set for a bounce back game because the Bengals are going to be able to score as well in this. So this should be a high scoring game. And Jonnu Smith has been held down the last 2 weeks coming off of an injury, but this week I think we see him get more utilized in those short screen games, maybe a couple running plays that they like to do with him on the jet sweeps. So I like Smith.
Yeah, and the Bengals are now 7-point underdogs at home. Give me that value. I took it
I
at
like
5.5. I'd be
I
happy
like
to
the
take it at
Titans
7.
at 6 point
Yeah.
fave. So
It's
it's tough at
7.
7. It's tough at
It's 7
7.
almost across the board. Uh, Justin Jefferson or Brandon Ayuk?
Oh, Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, I think that's the answer. Yeah, as our listener
The San
mentioned,
Francisco Seattle game.
Jair Alexander might be he'll probably see some time against him. I think Kirk Cousins throws, but I just that matchup versus Seattle is too appealing.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sitting Patrick. I don't care what the matchup is because I think there is a danger that in this Chargers Broncos game, because we've seen Denver, they play really well at home.
Yeah.
And even last week, it's not like the Chiefs were just going up and down the field against them. It was a lot of short fields because Denver's offense was horrible. Defensive touchdown by Kansas City. Denver they have the ability to shut teams down. And with as much as I like Keenan Allen, with him really only being the only guy that Herbert likes to like target on the outside, where the rest of the guys getting sprinkled stuff, maybe they devise some sort of game plan to let him get his and just, avoid anyone else doing anything. And then they're able to stifle them in the red zone. So I like Mahomes still.
Yeah, and even if Mahomes, quote unquote, like if he plays only like say half a game, he could still throw 4 touchdowns and 250 yards in the first half and then never see him again. Carson is a game time decision. It's 50-50. I'm expecting him to be active. I think he doesn't have a very good game if he plays, but I could see him scoring a touchdown. But it's something that you have to be willing to risk it. And you play, and if you can pick up, say, DJ Dallas, and then all of a sudden Carson's out, that is a way to go. But it would depend on what other options. If you have people you like, if you have Jamal Williams, if you have Gio Bernard, I would play those guys. It's Edwards-Helaire, right? Or would you play Jamal Williams?
Oh, I would probably, man, damn, that's a hard one. I'd probably play Jamal Williams just because we saw him play 90% of the team snaps last week. He had 19 carries. He had, I think, 4 or 5 receptions. I think it's going to be a very similar workload, especially with really bad weather. Whereas with Kansas City, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have to deal with the presence of Le'Veon Bell, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. I just think there's too many mouths as opposed to what Green Bay likes. The way that they funnel their offense is through their starting running back and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, and we kind of mentioned that we expect a lot more Le'Veon Bell here against his former squad. Maybe that's a narrative street and that it doesn't end up panning out. But I think Jamal Williams is probably the better play this week, as crazy as that is to say. And then Justin Herbert or Josh Allen. Josh Allen doesn't. He's facing New England with their 2 cornerbacks banged up, but it's also going to be terrible weather. I think I go Justin Herbert here.
Yeah, because they both offer similar rushing upside, and I think Herbert has been showing that he has the ability to run. The Bills Patriots game is going to be nasty, and Josh Allen already still his horrible holding onto the ball. New England's going to be able to find a way to devise some sort of game plan, even minus those corners, to go up against what Buffalo likes to do in Stephon Diggs. So I would probably lean Herbert this week.
C-Dog, I like Jalen Reagor a lot.
Yes.
I think he has a potential to be an impact player this week. Like I said, I'm curious to see how he and Travis Fulgham and Dallas Goedert all kind of play. But against this Dallas defense that is absolutely atrocious, I think there's plenty of opportunities for him to step on the field, to have a monster game here and be really good. Cole Beasley, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Nelson Aguilar?
I'm going Cole Beasley. Short passing game. He owns New England.
Yeah, if it's PPR or half, I think I'm playing Beasley. If not, then Juju would be my answer. I would play Tevin Coleman over JaMychal Hasty. I think JaMychal Hasty is clearly the third option. And with Kyle Shanahan saying basically the plan was to rest McKinnon, I could see McKinnon having a nice volume here. So yeah, I wouldn't play Hasty. That he would. I don't expect him to get a ton of work.
I hate that 49ers backfield.
Yeah.
Them to me are very similar to New England, where they all hold value when they're in there playing, but trying to decide who's going to be the guy on a week in and week out basis is just too difficult for me to want to deal with.
Sea Dog, I think I would play Dallas Goddard over Carson and or DJ Dallas. I think it's obviously a much better matchup. I think he walks into double digit targets or close there too, and has a really nice game here. And Dallas is bad. So, yeah, Dallas. Give me Goddard over DJ Dallas and Goddard, who is Dallas against Dallas. Eagles defense or Steelers
Yes.
defense. I think it's Eagles defense.
Ben DiNucci is playing quarterback.
Ben DiNucci.
Yeah, DiNucci.
Yeah, no, I think Eagles defense. I think the Cowboys offensive line plus Ben DiNucci against that Eagles front seven.
It's not going to be pretty.
Thoughts and prayers in advance, my friend. They're not great against the back half, but I think the
all right, here we go.
Thielen, T. Higgins, Corey Davis. No, I think that's it. I think you did it. I think it's perfect.
I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean Juju over Corey Davis is tempting, but the matchup and the weather and Tannehill's been awesome. So yeah, I think that's how I would roll. I would deploy it. I think that's my favorite matchup or my favorite setting of that group.
This is a good one.
We appreciate everybody hopping in and joining us. We do this every Sunday morning. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to join us. And we're happy to give you our thoughts and where our heads are at. Pick one: J.K. Dobbins, JaMychal Hasty, Tevin Coleman, or Kendrick Bourne.
Give me Kendrick Bourne identity today.
Yep. I trust his volume. I trust his upside, and the matchup is amazing. JK we like, but who knows if he sees two targets or 20 carries. I would play Tevin over Hasty, but Bourne. Appreciate that, Shiv. Appreciate that. Thanks for hopping on. Thanks for riding with us.
Tell your friends.
We'll be here breaking down the waiver wire on Monday. It's getting a little ugly, but there's always opportunity. There's always players that pop, and that's how we get fantasy championships. All right, Brian.
Real quick before we leave, got some breaking news here about wide receiver Chris Godwin. There's a reports out of Tampa Bay are saying he has a 50-50 chance to play next week against New Orleans. Now, I know Antonio Brown just signed there, and if you were able to get him, I still think he is a sell high right now, but I do think that the guy that could benefit the most from this situation is Tyler Johnson. The last time that Chris Godwin missed the game, Tyler Johnson was funneled to passes. Tom Brady looked his way early and often, caught a touchdown. I think that especially this week with the New York Giants probably putting James Bradbury over on Mike Evans, I think Johnson is another really sneaky play for this Buccaneers offense with the way that Tom Brady's been playing and going forward. If somebody were to if these guys continuously got injured or if Mike Evans was shipped out of town.
Mike Evans is going to have a monster game, and then after this weekend, you need to trade him. He's going to go off. It's going to be on national TV. Everyone's going to see it. In games where Chris Godwin doesn't play, he sees close to double-digit targets. In games where Chris Godwin plays, he sees 2 targets. He might catch a touchdown. He might not. You might not see a target till into the fourth quarter. You're not going to love it. If Mike Evans gets, 100, 80 to 100 yards, a touchdown, you go trade for whatever you can get. The best package gets Mike Evans. You go, oh yeah, Chris Godwin's hurt. Look how good he is without Chris Godwin. A little sales pitch, a little this, a little that, a little look over here, and obviously you flip Mike Evans into something that you can actually use because when Chris Godwin is healthy, Mike Evans has been useless all season long, and it's incredibly frustrating. And I would be curious to see, it's an interesting situation because Tampa has like a lot of questions at wide receiver, but in theory, if they had a healthy complement and they added Antonio Brown, he could be the guy on the move this week.
Yeah, I just think this Tampa Bay team is like, they're becoming the juggernaut of the NFL. And I think we are quickly on pace to see a Kansas City versus Buccaneers Super Bowl with the way that Buccaneers defense has been playing. I
Yeah.
think that's the reason why this team is now the favorite. And real quick before we get out of here, I wanted to say I was looking at next week's lines. The New Orleans Saints are opening as a 4-point dog at Tampa Bay. And I already placed a pretty large wager on New Orleans with the points here because I don't care who Tampa Bay is getting back. I don't care if they're getting Antonio Brown. I don't care how good their defense has been. If New Orleans gets Michael Thomas back and they have a healthy complement of other guys with Emmanuel Sanders is likely back also next week, I think this game is going to be one of those 1 to 2 point games that we see in this division between those two teams.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that call quite a bit. I still think New Orleans is good. I don't think Tampa's great, but I think the
I don't
matchups are.
understand the deviation from there.
I would start Tevin. If it's full PPR and you think McKinnon gets a nice complement of dump offs, then it's worth it. But I think Tevin Coleman is the guy. I think if he's active, I think he's healthy, and I think if he's healthy, he's going to see plenty of work. I think McKinnon was obviously rested for this week, so I think he will see snaps. But I think Tevin Coleman is the guy if you have to start one. Sterling Shepard is interesting. I think he walked right back into a ton of volume. Obviously, it's a matchup where they're going to have to throw plenty. So I don't think it's a bad spot for him. Should I trade Zeke and Justin Jefferson for Jonathan Taylor and Allen Robinson? Absolutely, no question about it.
Yes, I hate saying it, but yeah, you got to do that.
That offense is not good. Zeke has looked average at best. The offensive line is big question marks. Brian and I are huge fans of Jonathan Taylor down the stretch, and as much as I like what Justin Jefferson's doing, and he's been amazing, Allen Robinson is super safe. The volume is locked in, and I think that's a trade that coming into the year you'd feel silly about making, but I think it makes too much sense, and I would actually be running to the thing to make the trade. Boston Scott or Justin Jefferson?
Boston Scott with no Miles Sanders back there, and they're probably going to be beaten up on the Cowboys. I'm going to play the starting guy who's going to see 15 touches.
Yeah, it's probably Boston Scott, but I like both of them.
No Amari Cooper.
I'm a little more optimistic on Amari. It's still Ben DiNucci, but the one consistent, which is wild to think about coming into the year, it wasn't thought of this way, has been Amari Cooper. He's seeing the volume. He's catching all the targets. I wouldn't be scared to play him, and I definitely wouldn't be playing like Kendrick Bourne over him. But if you have better options that you feel more comfortable with, I'm absolutely fine putting Amari on the bench. But
man, you are so much more optimistic than I am.
Well, you're a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be optimistic about your team with Ben DiNucci, but like I'm not an Amari Cooper fan. Like I've always been kind of a fade him. I always think his price is too high, but at this point he's seeing so much work, even on with they're gonna have to throw to somebody. And and I told you I like Dallas plus the 10.5, so somebody's gonna have to score to make it interesting. I don't think it's gonna be a pretty game, but I think they do just enough to cover that 10, and I think Amari Cooper is a big part of it. He's explosive, even if he gets 14 targets, catches 6 of them, which is terrible catch rate, and they breaks one for a touchdown. Like that's a reasonable outcome for this game for me.
I know Darius Slay hasn't been as good as what Philadelphia kind of wanted to see with him, but I think that was more predicated on their inabilities early on in the season. I think he's going to shadow Amari Cooper today, as he is the number one guy there for the Cowboys. He runs those shorter, quick slants and stuff. And I'm worried about this entire Cowboys offense this week in a game that Philadelphia should absolutely destroy them in.
DeAndre Swift. Yeah, I mean it would depend on who else you have, but I'm starting him in plenty of leagues. I think he's in a nice spot here, and with the Adrian Peterson, we expect him to struggle running between the tackles. So DeAndre Swift in swing plays and pitches and getting him involved unique ways, I think is incredibly appealing. Any other questions before we get out of here? I think we got everybody. If we missed you, please drop it in the comments so we can make sure we get your questions before we get out of here.
Hit us up on Twitter.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are on Twitter. We are FPAOP on Twitter as well if you want to follow the show. Pivot to Cam Newton.
No.
No, I would go Derek Carr. And Cam's just he hasn't been the same since returning. I don't think it's a great matchup. I don't love him here. I would go Derek Carr, even with the not great weather. Sometimes that the receivers have the advantage in bad weather and can make when they go to make the cut, the DB isn't ready, slips on the wet field. All of a sudden, Henry Ruggs is running for an 80-yard touchdown. I think Derek Carr is a fine game here. I think Darren Waller is so important to what they do, and I don't. I don't think the running game is amazing this week, so I think Derek Carr is super solid. Gas can or Robert Woods? I think I go
I'm
Robert
gonna go
Woods.
Gaskin.
Ooh, is
I
full
like
PPR?
I like the full PPR running back aspect of him also getting the rushing. I know Robert Woods or Bobby Trees will probably also see 2 to 3 rushing attempts, but Gaskin's getting 10 to 15 carries as well as probably 4 to 5 receptions.
Yeah, he definitely has a safer floor, especially as we both expect this game to kind of be like, okay, the Rams are going to go on the road, do enough to win. It's going to be kind of like that Giants game, but we'll see. Yeah, so I think that's everything. Once again, thank you so much for everybody who joined us. We are here multiple times a week talking all kinds of betting and fantasy. Follow us on Twitter. Hit us up if you have questions. We will be on there up until kickoff. But for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. We'll talk to y'all next time.
Good luck.